I just want to reset the show and reset what the breaking news that we have for our viewers. So it is 20 GMT. You are watching our extensive coverage. In the last hour, Iran has launched a wave of missiles toward Israel. Sirens have sounded across the country. These are the latest images over northern Israel. The military says it's intercepted all the missiles launched thus far. But there are reports that further attacks are expected. Iran says the strikes are in response to Israel's attack on Beirut's southern suburbs. Shortly after the missiles were launched, the head of Iran's Central Command put out a statement. Ali Abdullahi said the U.S. had given Israel the green light to attack Beirut. And the statement said this: "We had previously warned that if the crimes in the Dahieh area of Beirut expand, we will attack targets in the occupied territories. The Zionist army must stop its attacks on southern Lebanon and Dahieh, and if it expands its attacks on that area or responds to Iran's actions, it will face more crushing and regretful blows and devastating attacks against the regime and its supporters." All right, Ali Hashem is standing by for us in Beirut. We will also be live in Washington, D.C. with Mike Hanna, and we'll head to Mohamed Vall in the Iranian capital of Tehran very shortly. But first, we want to go to Nida Ibrahim, who is on the phone with us from the occupied West Bank. So, Nida, what are you seeing? What are you hearing where you are?
So the latest we have from the Israeli home front telling people that the missile threats from Iran for now seems to be over, requiring and asking people to leave protected spaces. According to the Israeli spokesperson, the Israeli army spokesperson, Afi Different, he's saying that all launches that have been fired from Iran into northern Israel were indeed intercepted. As we've been saying, the remarks usually coming from the Israeli public are always under the Israeli military censor. So even if there is damage, we don't expect the Israeli official organization, the Israeli army, the Israeli security agencies to declare it. But this seems to be the message that the Israeli army wants to show people inside Israel, wants to assure them that the Israeli aerial defense systems have managed to intercept all of these launches. Now, we were talking about the first wave having 4 missiles being fired into northern Israel. The second, according to Israeli sources, included 1 missile. But then we heard from the Israeli Hayom newspaper, a right-wing newspaper inside Israel, saying that a total of 10 missiles have been fired from Iran into Israel. Again, according to the Israeli army spokesperson, all of them have been intercepted. The response from Israel has been swift. Soon after these sirens have blasted, 3 waves of missile attacks have been detected, and the Israeli officials have been saying that they indeed will respond, that the response will be heavy, and that Iran, according to the Israeli National Minister of Itamar bin Gvir, will burn. This incident, this escalation is something that Israel has been lobbying for, has been working towards for days now, if not weeks. When we talk about not wanting to de-link the Iranian front with the Lebanese front, that's the demand from Iran. That's why they've been threatening to hit Israel should Israel hit the southern suburb of Beirut. But we still heard from Israel saying that they want the 2 fronts to be disconnected. They want the liberty to continue to operate against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they do not want to link that front to the talks going on between Iran and the U.S. We know there was a major frustration inside Israel because of the nature of the talks between the Iranians and the Americans. They did not want to see a deal. They wanted to continue the war, saying that they have strategic goals that they're planning on achieving by continuing the round of fighting. But again, when we were noticing and we were reading the remarks from Israelis throughout the day today after Israel hit the southern suburb of Beirut, there was a minimal expectation. The possibility that the Israelis have been looking at for Iran to be launching these attacks against Israel was very minimal. But now that Iran has indeed responded to the attack on Dahieh, the Israelis have been vowing and threatening to respond, saying that the response will be a heavy one.
All right, Nida Ibrahim, sit tight. A little bit of news that we are getting from a source telling Al Jazeera that Baghdad airport has shut down its airspace over Iraq. So a little piece of news there, perhaps an indication of the seriousness of this. But let's go over to Mohamed Vall, who joins us now live from Tehran. So, Mohamed, what are the Iranians saying? What are you seeing where you are?
Well, a lot of things right now. Just a while ago, there is news in the local media about a decision to close the western part of the Iranian airspace. And before that, we had two statements, one of them from the army headquarters. We talked about it in the previous show. And right now we have a new one that's from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, explaining what happened and talking about the type of missiles that have been used in this attack. It says, in response to the widespread crimes of the occupying Zionist regime in southern Lebanon and the mass killing and displacement of innocent people in the Tyre and Nabatea regions and other areas, including Beirut's Dahia, the Damat David Airport, the origin of these aggressions was targeted by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, Aerospace Forces ballistic missiles. So now at least we know what type of missiles has been launched, but the statement doesn't tell us how many were launched and how many times or how many waves of missiles were launched on Israel. But there is an interesting line after that in which it says this is a warning shot to the Israelis after so many weeks of violations that the Israelis have committed against the Lebanese, and after so many threatenings by promises by Iran to defend Lebanon, or at least to react in response to the attacks on Lebanon. Iran has always, since the beginning of this war, linked all the fronts that are related to it, including particularly and primarily Lebanon, and it has set it as a condition for any signing of a peace agreement that Israel stops its aggression in Lebanon. And now we have seen that Israelis didn't comply to that, and throughout those weeks since the signing of the peace agreement, Israel has been pushing inside Lebanon, and there was a time when Israel said it would send its army into Beirut, and that's when the Iranians just a week ago said that is another red line, a more even dangerous red line, and they promised just a week ago that they would attack northern Israel if that situation happens. That's when the American president intervened and asked the Israelis to refrain from going to Beirut. That was the second time that the American president announced that he forbade the Israelis from attacking Beirut, but the Israelis did not comply to that, and now the Iranians seem to have lost their patience over this. Okay, that line about a warning shot probably implies that Iran doesn't want this to be the beginning of a new resumption of the war, and that it is still studying the promise, the suggestions from the Americans for peace talks in Pakistan. The American president talking about a possibility of the resumption of those talks. So Iran has that door still open, apparently, from between the lines, but also it is saying that it is ready for any escalation that can be imposed on it by the Israelis.
Okay, that's Al Jazeera's Mohamed Vall reporting for us from Tehran. Sit tight, Mohamed. I want to go to Ali Hashem. He is there for us in Beirut. Ali, you just heard Mohamed read that IRGC statement, making abundantly clear that this is about Lebanon. You are there now. Has the situation on the ground changed at all? What are the Lebanese saying? What can you tell us?
Well, Lebanon is the ground zero for this escalation. And as you know, today there was an Israeli attack on this neighborhood in the southern suburb. It was a flat, a couple of people were killed. However, this instigated the Iranian escalation, the Iranian retaliation, because Iran already warned Israel a few days ago, actually a week ago, that at any opportunity, whenever there is an attack on Beirut or the southern suburbs, there's going to be a retaliation. Today, we are witnessing a different pattern. In the past, in the war, when the war erupted against Iran, it was Hezbollah who launched rockets to open a support front. Now it seems that the Iranians are opening their own support front towards their ally in Lebanon. However, till the moment, we have no reports of launches from Lebanon towards Israel. There's nothing really on the Lebanese front to actually to link to this escalation or to this retaliation from the Iranians. However, the next hours should tell a lot in case there is an Israeli attack on Iran, how Hezbollah is going to respond. Actually, the war is already going on here. There are attacks on southern Lebanon today, several attacks, as we saw in our colleagues reporting from Tyre, also on Nabatea, and all these towns and cities in southern Lebanon that have been attacked. Now, the Iranians once again are linking Lebanon, as we heard from the Khatam al-Anbiya commander, saying that in case of any Israeli attack on southern Lebanon and the southern suburb and Beirut. So now there's a new clause here, there's a new condition here. So how will Israel deal with this situation? Actually, it's a very complicated situation, given the fact that in parallel, what we are seeing isn't the return of the American-Israeli war on Iran. What we are seeing right now is something completely different. The Iranian retaliation to the war on Lebanon, how the Israelis are going to retaliate towards Iran, and whether the United States is going to be part of this retaliation. What we're hearing from President Trump, of course, I'll leave that to our colleague in Washington to report on. But all these elements right now are giving an indication that there is a very complicated situation in the region. Whether this is going to evolve into an Iranian-Israeli war, this is a big question, including Lebanon, because the war in Lebanon hasn't come to an end. Or will this escalation lead to a mega, or let me say, a grand deal on the region? This is also something that could be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and obviously this is still very much early days, early hours, all of this happening, or us getting word of it at least in the last hour, hour and a half or so. I want to go to Mike Hanna now, who's in Washington, D.C. Mike, obviously we are anxiously awaiting for any word, any signs or signals from the White House. Have they said anything at all? What do we know?
Well, President Trump has just spoken to a Fox News reporter saying that what I would suggest, he's quoted as saying to Iran, is you shot your missiles, that's enough, get back to the table and make the deal. He then goes on to say, or is reported to say, the deal will be signed on Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday. So he's still insisting that this deal is possible. He appears to be calling on Iran to try and hold back at this particular stage. We are hearing reports that he may be speaking to the Israeli Prime Minister in the coming hours. We have not confirmed that particular matter. But President Trump very clearly attempting to cling onto the ceasefire, and amidst this escalation in violence, continuing to insist that a deal is possible, and not only is it possible, but it's imminent.
All right, Mike, is there any indication that, I mean, this phone call you said may happen in the next couple of hours, but are there other channels that Washington is talking to the Israelis? And do we know at this stage whether Washington is telling Israel to pump the brakes and wait, or whether they have sort of tacit approval to do what they want to do?
Well, we have no clarity on that at this particular stage. State Department has been largely silent through this escalation in violence. A senior official did say that the Hezbollah is the body that must take much of the blame for this escalation, insisting that Iran is using Hezbollah to disrupt the attempts at getting a peace process going. The official also said that the U.S. continues to support the right of Israel to resist, and also supports the right of Lebanon to territorial integrity. Now, whether there are not contacts or not between the ambassadors of Israel and Lebanon, that's not clear at the moment either, although they will be meeting again in coming days. But the issue of Lebanon has always been the hot potato. President Trump earlier, in an interview that was recorded on Friday, said at that stage he was not demanding that Lebanon be included as part of the peace deal or Israeli attacks on Lebanon. He said that he knows that the Iranians would like that, but he's not going to demand that of Israel. But the situation now is one that, with this escalation, President Trump clearly deeply concerned that the ceasefire may fall apart, which would lead him, if he keeps his comments and his promises to launch another military action against Iran, something that would be deeply unpopular in this country.